Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're getting into a pretty significant work.
We are. L. Ron Hubbard's Dianetics, the modern science of mental health.
Exactly. And consider this our guided tour through the main ideas, the core concepts presented in this handbook about the mind.
Yeah, our goal is really to pull out the foundational stuff for you. We'll be looking at Dianetics' view on, what drives people, what it says causes mental issues, even some physical ones, and the therapy it lays out. It's a dense book.
It is. So we're aiming to distill the key insights, give you a solid grasp without, getting lost in the weeds.
Precisely.
And it really starts strong, doesn't it? The book makes this huge claim right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. It boldly says Dianetics is a milestone like discovering fire.
Like discovering fire.
Yeah.
Offering ways to cure psychosomatic problems and what it calls inorganic aberrations.
And it introduces this idea of the Dianetic clear, someone supposedly much, much smarter.
Okay, quite the introduction. So let's dive right in. Where does Hubbard start? What's the absolute base principle?
Well, right at the core of Dianetics is something called the dynamic principle of existence. And the first law, the main statement, is just survive.
Survive. Simple as that.
That's presented as the single fundamental urge of all life. Not one of many, but the one.
So in this view, everything boils down to survival. That's broad.
It is, but then he breaks it down, right, into the four dynamics.
Right, the four dynamics.
Right.
Tell us about those. How does survive get broken down?
Okay, so this main survival urge plays out across four areas, or dynamics, for everyone. First is dynamic one.
Okay.
That's survival for yourself and your immediate symbiotes. Think close family, people right around you.
Self-preservation plus your inner circle.
Yeah,
Makes sense. What's next? Dynamic two.
Dynamic two covers survival through sex, having kids, raising them, continuing the line.
Right. Procreation, family continuity.
Then dynamic three moves out to the group level. Your community, maybe political groups, even racial groups. It's about collective survival.
The social dimension.
Exactly. And finally, dynamic four is the big one. Survival for all of mankind.
Wow. Okay. From self to species, it's a very layered view of motivation.
It is. And the book really stresses that you need to see all four operating in a person to really understand their behavior.
So they're all interconnected and important.
Absolutely. Dianetics says that an unaberrated person, someone without these issues we'll get into, is motivated by all four dynamics working together. That's key to being clear.
Okay, we'll definitely circle back to the clear. So survival is the goal expressed through these four drives. But where does Dianetics say things go wrong? What causes the problems?
Right. This is where the really central concept of the reactive mind comes in. Dianetics claims to have discovered this previously unknown submind.
A submind?
Yeah, the reactive mind.
Yeah.
And it identifies this as the root cause of mental issues and, crucially, psychosomatic illnesses. It's presented as something totally new, different from older ideas about the unconscious.
Interesting. A submind that's always conscious. That sounds a bit contradictory. How does it work? How is it different from our normal thinking mind?
Well, the key difference is its function. The reactive mind doesn't analyze or reason like what Dianetics calls the analytical mind. That's our conscious thinking part.
Okay.
Instead, the reactive mind just records. It records physical pain and painful emotions, especially when the analytical mind is, let's say, offline or less active. Like during an injury or serious illness or under anesthetic, times of intense pain or trauma when you're not fully there analytically.
Right. See.
And it operates on a very basic stimulus response level. Hubbard compares it to like an animal mind.
So it's just passively recording painful stuff without understanding it.
Pretty much. And these specific recordings have a name in Dianetics.
Right. I remember reading that. Engrams.
Engrams, exactly. These are recordings made during moments of unconsciousness. Again, not sleep. But when the analytical mind isn't fully processing. Crucially, the conscious mind doesn't evaluate this stuff as it's recorded.
It's like raw, unprocessed pain data.
You could put it that way. Raw data tied to pain and bad emotion.
But they don't just sit there quietly, do they? These engrams can cause trouble later.
That's the whole point. They can be reactivated. If you encounter a situation later in life that has similar elements to the original incident where the engram was recorded, that engram can get triggered And when it does, it can exert this powerful, almost command-like influence. It can basically make you act irrationally, overriding your analytical mind.
Like a hidden program running in the background.
Sort of, yeah. Pushing you to behave in ways you wouldn't consciously choose.
And language is important here, too. Words spoken during the original incident.
Very important. Dianetics claims that if words were spoken while an enneagram was being recorded, those words become powerful commands embedded in the enneagram. These commands can directly mess with your thoughts, reduce your conscious awareness even further. The book argues that because of these engrams, most people are operating way below their actual mental potential.
And this connects directly to physical health problems as well, not just mental stuff.
That's a huge part of the theory. Dianetics states point blank that the enneagram is the sole cause of both mental aberrations and psychosomatic illnesses.
The sole cause. That's a strong claim, linking these recordings directly to physical symptoms.
A very strong claim, yes. It suggests a direct line from these unanalyzed, painful recordings to a whole range of physical problems.
Okay, so if enneagrams in this reactive mind are the problem, then the solution must involve dealing with them, right? Which brings us to Dianetic therapy. What's the aim there?
The stated goal, essentially, is to wipe the slate clean of this accumulated pain, to delete the enneagrams from the reactive mind.
Delete them? How?
The idea is that by confronting and re-experiencing them, they get refiled. They move from the reactive mind into your normal memory banks, like regular experiences.
So when that happens,
they supposedly lose their power. Their command value disappears. The aberrations, the psychosomatic issues linked to them are said to just vanish. It's meant to restore those four dynamics we talked about and regenerate the person.
Okay. And the method involves something called returning. What is that? Is it like hypnosis?
Hubbard makes a point of distinguishing it. Returning is described as a natural ability everyone supposedly has. It's being able to, while fully awake, re-experience a past event with all the original sensations.
All of them. Sights, sounds, feelings.
Sights, sounds, smells, emotions, everything. But crucially, Dianetics says you're wide awake, aware, and in control, not in a hypnotic trance.
So it's a conscious reliving. How does the therapy session actually work? There's an auditor, right?
Yes. Therapy usually involves an auditor who's the trained practitioner and the person receiving therapy, called the pre-clear.
Pre-clear, right.
The auditor guides the pre-clear into what's termed a Dianetic reverie. Again, they stress this isn't hypnosis, it's a state of relaxation. The auditor uses questions, prompts to help the pre-clear locate and then return to specific past incidents, specifically the ones containing enneagrams. They guide them to re-experience those moments.
Just consciously going back and feeling that pain again. That's supposed to erase the enneagram.
That's the core idea. By fully re-experiencing the enneagram with conscious awareness this time, the painful emotional charge gets discharged or released. Then, the theory goes, the enneagram is effectively erased from the reactive mind. It gets refiled as just a memory, like any other memory, losing its negative power.
And you have to tackle the earliest ones first.
That's emphasized, yes. You generally need to find and address the earliest, most fundamental engrams before you can effectively deal with later ones built upon them.
Okay, and this whole process aims to create a clear, which Dianetics presents as the ideal state. What does being clear mean in this context?
According to the book, a clear is someone completely free of all psychoses, neuroses, compulsions, repressions, and those psychosomatic illnesses we mentioned.
So no mental or related physical problem?
None. Plus, they're described as having intelligence significantly above the norm. And they approach life with, well, a lot more vigor and enthusiasm.
It's not just about removing negatives, but adding positives, enhanced abilities.
Exactly. Clear supposedly experience senses more fully, like full color vision, perfect tone hearing, better smell, taste, touch. This is contrasted with the aberrated perceptions of non-clears.
And memory.
Recall. They're said to have full recall, that returning ability we discussed, with all sexes intact and vivid, something supposedly limited in people still affected by engrams.
What about thinking? Are clears perfectly rational?
Dianetics claims the analytical mind, in its pure state, like in a clear, is inherently perfect. It can't make mistakes if it has the right data.
So irrationality comes from?
Bad data. Specifically, the false or distorted data coming from the reactive mind, from those engrams influencing thought.
And this leads to a view about basic human nature.
Yes. The book asserts that the basic nature of man, as seen in the clear state, is fundamentally good. Things we perceive as evil are attributed solely to these aberrations caused by engrams.
Interesting. So Let's loop back to the very beginning. How does being clear relate to that fundamental principle of survival?
Well, the ultimate goal is still survival, but it's framed as infinite survival. For the self, the family line, the group, mankind, forever.
Infinite survival. And how do pleasure and pain fit in?
Pleasure is seen as the motivator towards survival activities. Pain is the motivator away from non-survival activities or threats.
Both are important.
Both are seen as equally valid, essential parts of the survival dynamic.
Yeah.
You need the drive towards pleasure just as much as the avoidance of pain.
Are there things working against survival in this model?
Yes. Dianetics talks about survival suppressors. These are threats to other life forms, the environment, even just time itself. The survival drive is always pushing against these.
But humans aren't just reactive.
No, a key point is self-determinism. Man is presented as fundamentally self-determined, not just a stimulus response machine. And that pursuit of pleasure is presented as a vital necessity, not just a luxury.
Right. Okay, we've covered a lot of the core framework here. The survival principle, the dynamics, the reactive mind, engrams, therapy, the clear. What are the really crucial takeaways for someone listening to this?
I think the main things are that central idea of survival as the prime driver broken into those four dynamics. Then, the concept of the reactive mind as the source of our troubles, operating through these hidden recordings called engrams made during pain or unconsciousness.
And the therapy.
And the Dianetic therapy aiming to erase these engrams by re-experiencing them, leading to this state called clear, supposedly a much higher level of functioning, free from these issues.
Yeah, what really stands out, I think, is that idea that things we experienced when we weren't even, fully conscious could be pulling the strings now, affecting our thoughts, our feelings, maybe even our health.
It's a compelling, if controversial, idea.
And the prospect, the claim, that you could potentially unlock a much clearer, more capable state of mind. Well, it's definitely intriguing.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought to leave you with is this. If the mind is constantly recording, even when we think we're out of it or unaware, what hidden influences might actually be shaping your daily experience? And what would it truly mean to uncover and somehow process those hidden recordings? If that's even possible. Something to think about.